Hi, everyone. Welcome. We appreciate your participation in today's live chat to learn more about applying to the Scholarly Research Grants Program, or SRGP, and for the Sal Martino Legacy Grant for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Research. My name is Andrea Wieters, and I am a research project manager at the ASAE Research Foundation. And before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. So at this time, all lines are muted. We encourage you to use the raise your hand feature and the chat box at the lower right-hand side of your screen before we open the call up for the Q&A session later on. And then, as I mentioned, and those of you who just popped on, additionally, today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the grant portal site sometime after the call. We'll let you know when it is available for viewing. So today we'll highlight the program's purpose, the 2021 grant cycle timeline and application process, and we'll also provide you some tips and strategies for a successful proposal. You'll have the opportunity to ask any lingering questions at the end of the presentation. So hold on to them now, or as I mentioned before, enter them into the chat box, and I'll be sure to note them for later. I want to take a moment to briefly introduce you to the SRGP leadership, Gary Roebuck, who's the Associate Executive Director for Finance and Administration at the Association of Research Libraries. He is SRGP's chair, so welcome, Gary. Thank you for being here. As well as I'd like to send a special thank you to Webster Chamberlain and Bean LLC, as they're the Sal Martino Legacy Grant sponsor. And then finally, a most important shout out to the SRGP steering committee members and any volunteer reviewers who are on the call today and who are not. Just thank you so much for all of your support throughout the many years of this program. And we love that you're here on this call today. And if you have anything to add, as I mentioned earlier, we have room for you at the end and would love your participation in any way. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gary. Gary?
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome everyone. I'm glad that you're able to join us this afternoon to talk briefly about this program and about what we are looking for. We thought this would be a good idea, myself and also the steering committee and also reviewers who have reviewed in the past, to kind of actually make sure we acclimate and give context to this awards program, and so that we actually get very good, if you will, proposals. We've gotten very good proposals in the past, but we want even more. And we hope that this particular format of actually talking about the program will help us to get to that and help us to get proposals that are even more aligned with the mission of the foundation and even more aligned with the purpose of this particular program. So kind of going through these slides here, an overview of the purpose. I think the key words here, and I'll read this because I'm quite sure you don't have the slides. As one of the ASAE Foundation's strategic objectives, the Scholarly Research Grant Program and the Sal Martino Legacy Grant for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Research aim is to encourage collaborative research between members of the academic and practitioner communities to expand and advance knowledge in association management and leadership. The key words here I would like to point out would be collaborative. The fact that we're looking at the whole collaboration between members of academia and also practitioners in the community. So this is looking at ways we can kind of make the bridge between people like myself who are practitioners who run associations on a daily basis, and then those who work in the academic field. I work for the Association of Research Libraries, and so I work very closely with the academic field on a daily basis because of the nature of our membership in that sort of way. So the way we actually bridge the gap between those two things, between the theoretical and, if you will, the practical. And then of course, the whole idea is to expand and advance knowledge in association management and leadership. One of the things that we've seen in the past is some of the proposals that we've gotten have not actually, they've been very useful for, if you will, expanding theoretical knowledge and, if you will, expanding the the canon or the research agenda within the academic realm. But it was difficult to see that bridge between the academic and then how those of us in the practitioner world would leverage that in our everyday practice of running associations. And so we're looking for programs, or for projects and for proposals that actually make that leap. And that it's a bit more easy to actually do. So that's something I would commend as being important here. The next slide. So in terms of our priorities, the Scholarly Research Grant Program, there is no restriction on the specific area within association management that can be actually studied in those particular proposals. So past grantees have been across a variety of different areas: volunteer management, governance, advocacy, membership models, things of that sort. We actually have a carve-out that has been sponsored, the Sal Martino Legacy Grant, that is actually focused specifically on diversity, equity, and inclusion research. Obviously, we did that carve-out before 2020, but as you can see in the last 12 months, because of what's happened in this country and across the world, research within the area of DEI has become increasingly important. Because of the way our society is, and in order to actually, if you will, further the mission of associations towards helping us to have a more equitable society. So the Sal Martino grant actually looks at DEI, and that is in three different ways that we actually have here. It can be the primary research question. It can actually occur in a larger theme. So in other words, you may be looking at membership, or you may be looking at volunteer management, and DEI is an aspect of what you're actually, if you will, studying within that context. And then also it can actually have come up as a within these other research, as a review criteria that we actually have here. So in other words, DEI could actually be folded into your methodological approach. It could be folded into the theoretical underpinnings that actually you use in order to jump off from your research in terms of what is in that the literature review, and that is the underpinning of your actual project. So it's broad in the sense of where DEI can actually fall as being related here, and we try to make that as broad as possible so as to actually get the maximum amount of projects within this particular realm. The next slide. So in terms of funding, so the Scholarly Research Grants Program, we provide up to $15,000 that could be spread across a variety, multiple, if you will, projects. So in other words, if we have the $15,000, we get two projects, you may end up with $7,500 each and things of that sort. So addressing any area within nonprofit membership, and membership serving organizations, management and leadership is what we're kind of looking at there. The Sal Martino grant, one proposal for $15,000 that is actually there. So that's the actual key there. Multiple proposals under the SRGP, one proposal under the Sal Martino Legacy Grant per annual year in that case. Next slide. In terms of eligibility, so this program is actually intended to support research activities for those working or matriculating in an academic community. So academic faculty, could be students, can be research interns, variety of people within the academic world, or it can be association management professionals, people who are actually full-time employees of associations, or consultants. So we have research coming out of both realms. Funds will be issued to the employing entities. So we don't give these awards to individuals, but to the entity that they represent. And it's for direct costs only. So, we don't cover indirect costs. That's a key thing. A lot of places were asked that. We don't cover indirect costs, but just the direct costs associated with the project. And then while we don't require ASAE membership, this is not the, if you will, the push of this particular program, we strongly encourage it. And it's not because of the fact that, we're just trying to expand the membership roles of ASAE, though that's a good thing. It is really about, we want people who are doing this research to actually be familiar with our community. I think if you are part of this community by being an ASAE member, that's going to inform your work and inform how you go about doing it and inform how you would actually disseminate it as well. I think is very important, particularly those people who, applicants who may be academics, to be part of this community, because I think that's going to help to make sure that the research you have will be applicable and be something that the practitioners can actually use. So we would encourage that very strongly. Next slide. In terms of the review process, so it is a peer review process, as Andrea said at the beginning. There is both a steering committee and there is also a review committee. So of peers, we have both people who are academics as well as those of us who are practitioners and run associations day to day who are involved in actually reviewing these proposals that goes through a review. And by which we, in that way, we're able to actually choose whoever the recipients are. And we evaluate those proposals based upon these particular criteria here. I'm going to go through each one of them briefly. When the materials come out, they will be a more fleshed out, if you will, description of each one of these so that you know what you're being judged against, and you can kind of look at your proposal to make sure that it actually matches up to these. Theoretical application. We're looking for proposals which are actually grounded in theory, grounded in the literature. And one of the things that we've seen in some cases, the fact that, it's very difficult to see where they came out, where they came about their project. It was not apparent that they had done any sort of lit review and hadn't actually, if you will, grounded it in the actual research in the literature. So it's important that that's apparent. And that, it's apparent that that connection has been made. Approach is kind of a reference to methodology. We're taking a look at your research methodology, making sure that it's appropriate for what you're trying to actually to study and to, appropriate to the outcomes that are actually there. We want to make sure that it's rigorous enough. So if we were to fund it and we are to actually disseminate that research, those people who would actually read it and attempt to use it can be assured that it is, that it's actually, grounded and actually something they can trust. And I think that's very important. So approach in that sort of way is something we look at very strongly. Significance. Is the project addressing, if you will, a problem that's actually keeping a lot of us practitioners up at night? This is something we actually are very, very particular about, those of us who run associations, because we want lots of help. And so to the extent that these projects help us navigate the difficult world of running an organization from the day to day, that's going to be something we look at very closely. In similar, if you will, vein is impact. To what extent does the proposed work have the potential for having far-reaching impact or appeal to multiple stakeholders? So then we're looking at, is this going to be kind of a game changer? Is it going to actually open up new venues? Is it going to expand knowledge? Not just improve practice, but even actually, make some leaps forward. And also that it's applicable, if you will, and useful both within the practitioner world and also within the academic world in terms of actually expanding the literature and expanding knowledge within the particular field of nonprofit and association management. Innovation. Looking at things that do things in new ways. It's one thing to actually have something to just kind of expand knowledge, but how does it actually kind of push the envelope? Maybe it's taking an old theory or old construct and applying it in a new way. So we're looking at that sort of innovative use of the literature in order to kind of expand knowledge. Alignment with the foundation's mission and with the foundation's research agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one in a subsequent slide, but very important. And I would encourage you, if you have not, to visit the foundation, the ASAE's foundation website, and look under the About Us. It talks very much about the foundation's research agenda and talks about the foundation's mission. And I would commend you to actually read that and to actually make sure your projects are in line with that, because that's going to be something that we look very closely at. Is this, if you will, furthering the mission of the foundation and the mission of serving our community of association management practitioners? Organizational commitment, we're looking for, if you're coming from a larger party, that your organization has said you're okay to do this project. We let you have the time to do it, and we're going to support you in what you're doing. We certainly don't want you going rogue. So this is one way for us to be assured that that's not happening if we have a letter that says you have been given permission to actually go about the research that you're doing. And then very importantly, what's the good of doing work and coming up with great research if you have no plan for how you actually get it out there into the world? And so we're going to be look very closely at your dissemination plans to make sure that they're addressing not just the academic community, by presenting in journal articles or presenting it at various academic conferences, but also to the practitioner community through the ASAE's annual conference is one example. There are also various conferences that address different subject, if you will, practice areas, such as communications or technology and things of that sort. So we'll be looking very closely to make sure that once you do your great research and we fund that we actually put that knowledge out there into the field. Next slide. Okay, so have we gotten to the, am I supposed to be covering this, Andrea? Looking at this to make sure.
Yeah, I think you can cover this just very quickly. And
okay. So the proposal requirements, a lot of this is kind of straightforward, things you've probably seen in a lot of other grant programs, an application page that tells us who you are and things of that sort, an abstract that gives us an idea of what the project is about. And I would say an abstract that covers, at a very high level, each one of those particular areas we talked about in that last slide, so that it's apparent that those things are actually there. If we don't have to go searching for it, it's a lot easier for us to make an evaluation that this is something going in the right direction. The proposal itself, not to exceed 10 pages. We know in the academic world, I work with them. We love words and lengthy papers, but we will give some points of brevity and to be as clear and concise as possible. And then, of course, work plan and timeline. We want to know how it's going to actually be carried out and the timeline it's going to be done, because that's going to influence when we can actually get those things out and when we can expect those results to come in. Bibliography, a budget that gives a detailed justification of the expenses, very important, obviously. Statement of department or organizational commitment, we had talked about that. That's that letter from your organization saying you're okay to do this. And then, of course, CV or resume and any appendix where you might put any other supporting materials you may actually have. Next slide. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about this. So this is just kind of some restrictions and some requirements. We don't fund indirect costs. We had talked about that under this program. In relation to direct costs, you can put in travel funds, but they have to be directly related to the research activity. So, not a way of actually funding your attendance at conferences unless they're actually related to this. So let's say you were going to a conference and it was related to dissemination. That might be something that would be considered versus some, another reason why you would go to a particular event. And the award recipients will be required to submit an interim and final report. This is common with most grant programs. We want to know the progress that you make as you go along, and then also the final progress once the project has completed. So we can kind of give an account of how the funds that people have contributed to the association have been used. That's just being good stewards. So I think we've covered that. Andrea, I think back to you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Gary. And I know that was a lot of information, and I want to walk you now through just the application process and how you can, the best way to do that is via the application site. So the grant portal we use looks a little bit something like this. And what I'm going to do now is just share my screen so that you can see the actual grant portal itself. So hold on with me for 1 second. All right, so you can probably see everything that's on my screen right now. But hopefully the main part will be this research grants program site. So if everyone can see that, please let me know with a verbal yes if someone can do that.
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you. Just your basic site. The one thing that you'll keep in mind is that this is where you'll log in with your ASAE account. Don't worry if you do not have an ASAE account, you can create one through this site, and you'll use that as your email address will be your username, and you can create a unique password if you do not have one through ASAE already. And I can help you out on the back end if things get a little jumbly, but I could definitely do that for you. On this first page, I'm just going to pretend like we already logged in, and so this will be what it looks like for you. So on this first page, you can see all this information that you'll need to know moving forward, and then everything that Gary has gone over lives on the site as well. I'm just going to head back to this page, but you can see when you move to the grant overview, we'll have here what our priorities are, the funding, award eligibility, learn more about Sal Martino and his legacy. There's no point in opening these up. Okay. And then also as well as the criteria and requirements that you'll need to know. So just diving into a little bit more detail from what Gary told you earlier, and even ask some questions for you to ask yourself as you are filling out or developing your proposal. Finally, you can find the key dates that are that we're looking for. Please keep in mind the upcoming date of February 1st is the letter of intent. While the letter of intent is not necessarily it's not necessary to submit one. What it does help is it helps us to understand how many people are planning to submit an application, as well as helps us to understand what topic you may be presenting or you may be writing your proposal on. So if it's something specific to DEI, if it's something specific to membership, we have the ability to then look for peers in the community, bring them in as reviewers to serve more of expertise on our side. And just a quick note about the letter of intent. It's not very long. It could serve as through an email that just basically tells us who you are, where you're from, your intent to apply, and the basic understanding or a brief overview of your proposed research. That's it, and it can be sent to an email, to my email address or to Eric's email address, which we'll share with you after this and later on. And finally, just note that the application deadline is February 26th. So when you're looking to submit your proposal, you can click the Submit Proposal tab here, or on this left-hand side here, you can go to My Applications and see all of your applications that you've started. If you've already started an application, you can click here to view your past submissions, or click to begin a new one. So a new one will look a little something like this, and of course, we know all of starred means information that must be included, just your basic information to start out with. And you'll note on the side here is just a reminder of when your applications are due, and then the email addresses I mentioned earlier, who to send or who to send information to, and or contact if you have any questions. I think the biggest thing to know here is you can definitely input additional investigators or co-investigators. We have up to 3 listed where you can also upload their CVs. And then finally, this last page is where the proposal information, where once again, we help you with putting out the proposal instructions. We ask here if this is where you'd like to be considered for the Sal Martino Legacy Grant for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Research. And here's where you can upload the proposal file. So that upload will include everything that's listed here into one document as Word or PDF. You can check to see what when you've submit, or if you're in progress, you can check to see, and under the My Applications tab, what is in progress, what isn't complete, and then maybe what has expired. If you neglected to hit submit or anything like that, you can see that from this page. All right, I'm going to head back over to the PowerPoint presentation. All right, can everyone see this page?
Yep.
Thanks. And just reiterating those important dates to remember, the letter of intent and the application date are key here, so please write those down on your calendar. All right, Gary, back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm glad we put this slide in. It's like tips for a successful proposal. And what I would say also is that this is a list of how to make sure your proposal is actually given some, is not thrown out automatically. And what because it's just very important. I would say that this list is very important for that. And I want, hopefully we're able, I'm not sure are we gonna put these slides up somewhere, Andrea?
Yes, we can put we'll send you the slides as a PDF, as well as post this this recording to the site I just showed you.
Okay, that's great. So I would say that you would use this slide as a checklist when you're looking at your proposal. So so let's go through these things, because I think they're very important. Number one here, investigate topics that are aligned with Research Foundation's mission and overarching research agenda. Again, as I had said earlier in my comments, I hope all of you will go to the ASAE Foundation's website and look under About Us, and look at the actual thing about the mission of the foundation and its research agenda, meaning the things in the topics in which it currently has research. I'm going to read to you what the mission is, at least from what I actually was able to pull from the website. The ASAE Foundation, Research Foundation, identifies critical trends and evidence-based effective practices in association leadership and management by funding and conducting research that no one organization can undertake on its own. I think it's very important to note there, critical trends is one of the things that comes out from that particular mission statement. We're looking for research that actually hits those critical trends in association leadership and management. So that's going to be one thing we're going to be looking at, is proposals that are actually looking at or investigating those critical trends, and helpfully, offering some solutions for how people actually navigate those particular trends as we see them. Obviously, any sort of research would be evidence-based, and we're looking for trying to distill, if you will, effective practices. That those practices and those critical trends are in the area of not just nonprofit management, but specifically association leadership and management. This is another thing that we've struggled with. We've got proposals that were not as sufficiently as we would want, if you will, focused on the practice of association leadership and management. Obviously, nonprofit management is a much broader area, but ASAE particularly is looking at association. So membership, if you will, membership organizations that have members, either individuals or organizations. So that's very important that it's specifically focused on associations in that sort of way. And then the other key thing of that mission statement, I would say, is that it says conducting research that no one organization can undertake on its own. We're looking at things which are actually collaborative, and that, if you will, bring together the efforts of a variety of different organizations and people to attack programs, or as I say, research questions that can't be done, if you will, just on one organization. So we're going to probably look at things that are occurring or looking at a variety of different organizations, so you can kind of actually distill, if you will, effective practices, not just by looking at one organization's, if you will, way of doing something, but what's happening across a broader swath of organizations and a broader swath of, if you will, different experiences and things of that sort. So I think it's very important there that, we're looking at broader questions, broader, if you will, trends in the field, things that can be generalized in some sort of way as effective practice for association management and leadership. In terms of the actual agenda of the research agenda of the foundation, There are like several topics that they have listed on the website. Business operations is one. We've talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a specific award, the Sal Martino Award, that is actually for proposals that actually are looking at that particular research agenda item. Governance, obviously, is a very important topic in many ways for associations. Leadership, marketing and communications is another area of particular interest. Membership, obviously, with associations being membership organizations, primarily anything that looks at membership and the dynamics around that is very important. Professional development, obviously another important thing that associations do, particularly when you're talking about professional organizations whose members are individuals in a particular field or endeavor. Research methodologies. So looking at how research is done specifically within association management, which may be different for research and how things are done in other particular areas. And then technology, obviously, is a very important thing, very important practice area for many nonprofit organizations, but specifically for associations. So anything that actually is tied through those areas and tied specifically to association management is what we're really looking for. To the next point here, focus on innovative and relevant research questions. So we had talked about innovation being one of the criteria by which we actually evaluate various proposals we get. So we're going to be looking for innovative, if you will, or new ways of kind of actually looking at problems, new ways of approaching problems that are different from what everybody else has done. So we're looking for things which kind of, if you will, kind of break those molds and look at things in novel sort of ways. Address what new knowledge the research study may uncover. So new knowledge, we're looking for, if you will, obviously most projects should be a new knowledge. We're not just necessarily trying to replicate what has been done before. You may want to, and so if you expand something that was coming from a different realm to association management, that might be useful. But we're looking for things which are actually new, that expand knowledge, if you will, that give us insight that we did not necessarily have before in some sort of empirical sort of way. We're looking for proposals that outline a dissemination plan to share key findings with the association and academic community. I will say that we have had proposals that were great otherwise, but had not thought about this question. And it's very important when you actually put your proposals in that you think about dissemination. One of the things we've ran into is the fact that the associations are doing great work and we're breaking all sorts of new ground, but we're not very good at actually talking about it. And I think it's important that that's something we're looking at. People won't know that this knowledge is there if we don't actually get it to them in some sort of way. So I want to commend to you to spend time thinking about, once the research is done, how you would get it out there, how you would actually introduce it to the world so that people actually begin to make use of it. Clearly articulate the practical value and application of key findings to nonprofit membership and member-based associations. So practical value is the key thing there. Again, coming from a world that I work with academics, theory is great. I love theory. I think everybody does. But we're focused on the practical here. I refuse to believe there's not a way of actually doing things which are actually both stimulating from a theoretical standpoint in terms of being useful within the academic context, but also has a practical component as well. So we're looking at things which bridge both of those, and that's going to be very important to a successful proposal. And the next point here includes research teams that embrace academic and professional collaboration. So again, that we're looking at projects that bring together both academics and practitioners. So if you are an academic, you will probably get extra points if you are able to incorporate practitioners into your research study. in some sort of way, either as, as collaborators or as people you look for, for insight into the questions that you're actually doing. But we're looking for that sort of collaboration and that sort of cross-problemization, because it's going to be very particularly useful for what we had talked about earlier, which is the fact that the research has a practical application that we're able to actually draw back the connections to everyday, if you will, practice. Lastly, that successful proposals use acceptable research methodologies to offer high quality, valid, reliable results. Again, that's why we had talked about the approach. So the research methodology is very important. We've had proposals that have been very good and would have, are looking at very relevant areas and things of that sort, but had not given enough thought, I think, to research methodology in a way that would have produced results that would have stood up against, if you will, tests of rigor and validity and reliability. So that sort of thing is very important. We want to put out things which are rigorously tested, that are solid, and that people can have confidence in. That's something that's very important, that the practitioners can take the research and be confident that what it's actually saying is something that they can depend on, is being rigorous enough to inform their practice. I'm going to pause here. I don't know if other members of the committee are here. If you want to chime in on anything that you have noticed when we've reviewed these proposals that you would like to share with potential applicants, I would invite you now to offer them in case I have not actually gotten to them here.
Okay.
Karen.
You actually did very much touch upon these two aspects, but I wanted to perhaps give additional emphasis. And getting back to the organizational commitment, I think a lot thought must be given to who is writing that letter. And I know by virtue of the fact of your roles in different organizations and entities, that may be a little difficult. But to receive an organization or letter of support that you as the applicant wrote does not bode well, or a member of the team. And we've also seen that. So they're going to be co-PIs working on the project, but one of those individuals has submitted the letter of intent. And what comes to mind is like, I am attesting to, I will do what I said I do, but again, it does not quite meet the need. And the other point that kind of really stands out for me is the dissemination. As Gary said, we create a lot of invaluable material, but we can't always quite get it out there. The dissemination plan, I think it's helpful if there are multiple prongs to it. To have the sole prong being ASAE as the distribution method does not settle well. I work with a grant program for the association where I work, and many times our applicants will say, I'll present it at the convention. Well, as we can see, conventions were kind of blown out the water last year. For our particular convention, you have to submit it, it has to be reviewed, et cetera. So I say all that to say multi-pronged dissemination. So those are my two maybe pet areas.
And all very valid stuff there. Thank you, Karen. We have anyone else from the committee? I think I see a comment here. Andrea, is that a question?
This is Christine from the committee. Hi. Yes. So I just wanted to echo a little bit and build on what Karen said, if I may. Yes. For me, a part that was important in the letter of support is also, particularly if you're an academic, that it's not just that your institution is supporting this, but the organization or organizations that you're going to study, to have something, and even potentially not just from their executive, but from their board, so that we know that their board of directors have actually talked about this and that they are willing to participate in this study. To whatever degree, if that's a part of your study, but to have the organizational support beyond just the executive saying that yes, but did the board are they aware of it? Are they going to encourage participation, et cetera? So that was something that I was looking for. And then also, and you did touch on this, thanks, Gary, the idea that, I mean, generalizability is always a difficult thing in research, but we're still interested in, if you're looking, for example, at one particular organization and how it might build its membership, that's great for that organization, but we'd like to see in the proposal how you would take what you learn to potentially help other associations inform their membership growth. So it's not just to help this organization understand these are some barriers. Maybe it's had to recruiting a particular type of applicant, for example, or member, excuse me. But rather, so with this data, we think we could then help other associations follow suit. So those were the things that for me really stood out that were, I thought potentially could be stronger in applications. So impressed with the number of applications though. So I thank you guys for being here and letting us share our thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. Any other members of the committee with any words of wisdom? Okay, I think that says none. So we're now, I think, into the Q&A section of our presentation here.
Right, and I will just make a friendly amendment to something that was brought up earlier, and I'm just going to head back to this, to the funding part. I think and this may have been my mistake in writing this. So we provide up to $15,000 per proposal. So it may be to multiple proposals. So if we have the available funds for 2 or 3 proposals, we'll award up to $15,000 per proposal. So it's not split amongst different things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear moving forward. But there is only $15,000 for the one San Martino Legacy Grant. That's not to say that multiple DEI grants cannot be awarded. Just one will be awarded as the San Martino Legacy Grant, and the others could be part of the SRGP General Fund.
Gotcha, gotcha.
All right.
I mean, I think that should be good news. That means there's even more money to be had.
Exactly. I wanted to share that with everybody. The wealth is out there.
That's right. Okay, so we have now reached the question and answer part of our show here. If you have questions about the application process or about the criteria, now's the time to let us know that. I'm quite sure I did not cover all your possible questions in my presentation. So feel free.
Can I ask a question really
Yes.
quick? Okay. I just wanted to know, are there other publications that you guys would kind of point people to in regards to that's doing work around, association, member development? So what are those like research journals and publications that might be helpful to help us frame our question and everything?
Well, I'll put out one, and that is to go to the ASAE Foundation website and look under the projects that they have done of the research committee. I used to be chair of it at one point, and they've put out a number of good studies, very, very specific, obviously, to association management. So I would start there. There's a lot of great materials for practitioners on the website that have been through the rigorous process we had talked about that are, if you will, evidence-based in terms of association practice. Other members of the committee outside of ASAE's own publications, anything else you would actually recommend?
There are some good examples in ARNOVA, which is an association for research for nonprofits. And in their quarterly, and I believe quarterly or even monthly journals, they have examples of research done for nonprofits, and there are occasionally association related or directed research in there. And so we'd like to see more in ARNOVA and in those cases, but that's also a very good place to look to gain some more insight on what's out there and what's been done or what is continuing to be done.
Any
Yeah,
other?
it just struck me that we, in our association, like we struggle. I mean, we think a lot about membership engagement, but we never use journals or any existing research to kind of help us think. I mean, we use it for other things, but like specifically for like member engagement, which is so important to us, it would be super helpful. This research and then also knowing other kind of journals and such. So thank you so much.
Great, great. I saw a question in the chat. Can a institution submit multiple proposals? And I want to be careful about answering this. Andrea, do you have any insight? Because I want to make sure I'm correct here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was listening to you, but also giggling that like 5 people put in the link to Arnova. So we have that. And then just to put out, and a special thanks to David, who's on our committee,
Yes.
just for saying the specific name of Arnova's journal is the Nonprofit and Voluntary Sector Quarterly. So that's the specific name, but you can find it on Arnova's site. And so yes, more than one institution can submit. An institution can submit more than one proposal or application. Just keeping in mind the amount of funding available, that's there as well. And we've also heard from participants of this grant program that even going through the process of developing the proposal, even if it doesn't get selected, has been helpful in terms of doing their own research or maybe their own self-funded research. So if you feel, if you'd like to submit more than one from your institution, we fully support that. We'd also like for you to consider if there's one that you feel may gain more traction in the community or hits the points harder than the other one, to consider doing that first. But you are more than welcome to submit as many as you like.
I see a question we missed earlier that said, how many grants do we typically receive?
And I responded directly, and I neglected to respond a bit wholeheartedly, but over the course of the program, which is 7 or 8 years, I believe. So I would say that we average probably 10 or so per grant cycle, and that varies to the higher side. So we may have more than that. So once again, that's keeping in mind what we have available to provide funding for. And then also one benefit, I believe it's a benefit that we'd like to provide afterwards, whether your proposal has been accepted or not, is we would like to provide the opportunity for you to receive feedback from us. So if there's anything that we can do to help improve your proposal for either another submission to SRGP or to additional submissions elsewhere, we're happy to be part of that. And we also want to stay in touch with you regardless of your status, because we want to know how your research is going and how you've committed to the association community, and how we can work together to still promote all of that information. That was a lot of answers to the one question. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see here.
We received 10 plus, not necessarily fund. So funding up to 15,000 per proposal, and that amount can vary. Exactly. No, so we may we can sign off or grant proposals up to $15,000 a piece, and there could be more than one or two. So that it does vary depending on depending on the review panel's selection of who should move forward with the grant or with the proposals. So we have at times been able to grant $30,000 in grants for two proposals, or are higher or more. Just depends on the peer review process.
So I see a question that came in that said, that talked about being a third-party administrator for an orthopedic graduate medical education. You're a nonprofit, but not a membership organization. Are you eligible for a grant? I would say, and again, we're going to talk about this. This depends on what the grant, what the research project is about. Again, we're looking at things which are actually expanding the knowledge in the practice around association management and leadership. Okay, so if what you're doing is going to actually advance the practice of association management, so we're talking about membership organizations here in a broad sort of sense, then yes, it would probably be something we would consider funding, because depending on the nature and the merits of the proposal itself. If it's just looking at nonprofit management in general, probably not. Again, this particular grant program is looking at association management. That is, if you will, the mission of the ASAE Foundation. And that's why, what we're trying to do in terms of the funding is the fact of actually getting money out there that to fund research that's specifically looking at this subset of nonprofit management, because it's a very large area, obviously. Would you add to that, Andrea, or to Sharon?
I think that's perfect, that the subject matter relates to association management in terms of member serving organizations.
Right. Right. Any other questions?
And this is not your only time.
No, we're open for questions afterwards. All right, so if you don't have any, I don't want, I'm always particular about time, and we're all zoomed out. So we'll give you back your hour. But thank you for coming to this. Oh, wait a minute here. Do you have to be an SA member to receive a grant or apply? No, you do not. That was, we had talked about that earlier. We encourage it, but it is not required. ASAE membership is not required for that. And then, of course, we'll try to get the presentation out to people as quickly as we can following this presentation, I believe. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks, for showing up to this. I hope this has been helpful and has been, giving you some insight into what we're looking for. And we look forward to receiving your proposals and hopefully that they will advance the practice of association management. Those of us who are in the seat can use all the help we can get. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of the steering committee members who are on. I really appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Thanks, Gary. Take
all
care.
Right.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Have a good evening.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Karen.
See you, Sharon.